All right, we're nice and straight. Hello, my name's Bill and this is 6 Rounds Studio. Today the plan is to take out the dents in the side of this 1905 Ithaca double barrel restoration. Now, best laid plans. When I started out, my plan was to simply steam these dents out, and doing some experimentation I was able to steam out some of those dents. But the amount of oil in this stock, the oil is literally displacing the water and not letting the water get down inside the wood fibers, so that when I apply the heat, that the steam can blow those fibers out. We've already talked several times about the amount of oil in this stock. Well, it's going to fight me right to the end. So we have a different plan for taking out these dents today, and I'm going to take you through the process. So the decision was to actually rasp away or file away these dents. Now, fortunately, they're not terribly deep, but they are deep enough and sharp enough that getting them out is been a real struggle. As I said earlier, they don't want to steam out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start out, and one of the advantages that I've got here is the thickness of this across the width of the stock. It's got a little bit of a belly. When I look at the 1925, it's actually fairly a thin taper and very refined. And I'm going to take this one down. I got a little bit of room that I can work with this. Excuse me. So I'm gonna rasp this down and try to thin it down and get out whatever of the dents that I can. And we'll end up finishing it with sandpaper. Now I may be able to, once I've gotten some of those dents out, the majority of them, or the deepest of them, I may be able to go back and do some steaming and try to pull the rest of them out before I do any sanding. So let's go ahead and do that. Now I'm going to start out with a fairly aggressive rasp. So we're going to start out and we're going to use kind of a shaving motion. So rather than going across, because we never want to go across the grain, we've talked about that many times. So we're going to use a little bit of a shaving action. And we're going to keep moving across the stock as we do it. There's so much oil in this thing that it literally is slippery, and you can see how it's just sticking to the rasp, the fibers. Again, we're just sort of shaving, rotating the rasp as we go around because we don't want to flat spot it. I've talked many times about not flat spotting when you're doing any of this kind of work. And I'm just gently taking it down. Until that dent begins to disappear or that line begins to disappear. I'm in no rush. Again, I want to... One of the nice things about these rasps, if we go lengthwise, we can make sure that we're not digging in and we're bridging any gaps. If we want to get a little more aggressive, we can go to the round side of the rasp. You've got to be kind of careful when you do that because it is aggressive when you go that way. And then we'll do the same thing over here. Now I've left it mounted in the receiver. That gives me something to clamp on and then keep the entire piece of wood floating back off the clamp. Now I've got one here that's exceptionally deep, and this one is probably a good 5 or 6 thousandths deep. So as I file this off, or rasp it off, I am amazed at how much yellow yellow just remains behind. The amount of oil, I can't even imagine what in this shotgun's history ever got it to end up saturating so much oil. Be a fun thing to understand somehow. One of the things we want to do is we want to maintain straight lines. So when we're rasping or filing or shaping, most of these lines want to be pretty straight. Now this side is really nicely shaped. Got a little bit of a belly still right in this area here, so we can sort of just pull it away and just check often. So we want a nice taper that goes from the wrist area out to the pad, and it should be a nice straight taper in a well done stock. We try to avoid these sort of shads or these wider sections in the middle. So a straight edge can be a stock maker's best friend. And again, just doing what we can to get it nicely shaped and straight. Now, one of the problems is this stock got busted on the tip right here in this area in the stock. So there's a dip in there, and it's not a bad one. It's probably, I don't know, 10-15 thousandths gone. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to taper that back from here to here and shape it around, continuing to create that existing radius, but just to drop it down, probably like whatever it takes, really, to bring it so that it's a nice taper, a nice curve at the end. And same thing, same concept as we're working our way around. We want to make sure we keep moving the rasp, trying to avoid flat spots. So again, using the straight edge, we want to make sure that we're maintaining a nice taper from the grip to the toe. We don't want to create any kind of a curve or a sag in there. So we're just bringing it back. All right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to lose the coarse rasp, and I'm going to come over to this fine rasp and start pulling out some of those more coarse lines that are made by the rasp. Now a rasp, you can use a rasp, so think about a rasp just like you do sandpaper. So the coarser the rasp, the deeper the deeper the gouges. You go to a finer rasp, there's more teeth per inch, so you get a little bit smoother cut. And then finally we'll go to this file, which is a medium finish, and it's the same thing. It's flat and it also has the curve. So we'll end up going to the cabinet file before we're done. And then when we're done here, we're going to pick up 100 grit, maybe 80 grit. I doubt it. We'll start with probably 100 grit cloth back paper and start pulling these gouges out. All right, so we've got most of these scratches from the rasp out using the cabinet file. I'm going to go to 100 grit paper. I'm using my milled block, and what I want to do is make sure for this initial sanding that I'm keeping this as flat as I can. So we use the straight edge to keep everything flat, and then I don't want to change that by sanding it with something that doesn't maintain that edge. Now we're going to do this real quickly, real briefly, because the next thing I want to do, now that I'm down to a little bit more raw wood, I want to pull out the steam iron and see if I can't pull out those few little dents that are left. If not, I'm going to have to rasp a little bit deeper, and I don't want to do that if I can avoid it. All right, we're nice and straight. So we're going to steam out the fewer small dents that are still left. They're barely there, but I can see them because they're a little bit darker. Now, I don't know if the camera can see them, but I got one here, a little bit here, in this area. Still got one of those deeper ones right in here that we need to get out. I'm not overly concerned about it, but when I do the final sanding, what I'm hoping for is that if I can get them popped out even, that when I go and do the final sanding will sort of bridge over that and take that away. So what are we using? Well, we're using a standard household iron, distilled water, and a Q-tip. Now, I've done an entire video on steaming out dents. I'll put a link to that at the end of this video in the end credits, so you can go check that out. So I'm not going to do a lot of detailed explanation here because that other videos exist. But basically, we're going to just take the distilled water and the Q-tip, put it over the dents, the worst of the dent. And because we've already gotten down closer to the raw wood, the water will absorb better into it as opposed if I still had finish on it. You can still steam dents out when there's finish, but it's much more effective when you can get the water down into the wood fibers itself. I always moisten paper towel, but the concentration of water is going to be right on the dent itself. Going to just overlay the rag, and you can see the steam, you can hear it steaming. And just simply trying to raise the wood around that dent. We'll continue it again, focusing on the place where the dents are. That's where the bulk of the moisture or the water is going to be. Another one down here. We can put the point of the iron right on the dent, or the worst of the dent, focusing that heat there. Go back to using my sanding block. When we get to this point, that dent's not very deep, so we're not having to use the rasp or anything like that. I can already see the colors coming out, so that's telling me that I did lift the dent. And then we can roll it over and do the other side. These are pretty light. These, I imagine, are going to come out pretty quickly. I need to work on this checkering and work up along the metal. I'll put the trigger guard back on the gun when I get ready to do that. So I may do some updates over there on my Instagram. If you haven't signed up for my Instagram, please go over there and follow me over there, because I do a lot of weekly updates that don't show up on the big videos. Alright, you all know how this goes. Like, tag, share, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, ring the bell so you get notified the next time I post a video. We've also picked up 3 new members over on Patreon in the last month, and I really appreciate all you guys over there. I'd also like to figure out how to get more value to all of you over there on Patreon. So if you've got some ideas, just go to Patreon and message me and suggest something that may be useful to you. Maybe we can do a Zoom meeting. And I can throw some questions out, or you guys can throw some questions out to me. I really do appreciate the fact that the channel's growing, so we're going to continue that march. My next goal is 5,000 subscribers. We're about 650 subs away from that. So appreciate all of that. So until the next video, thanks for watching, and I'll see you then.